just sitting down and talking to them. And I always say, what problems, questions, or concerns do you have? And I'll tell you that 95% of the time they're going to say, oh, none, I'm good. But every once in a while, they'll tell you something and you can deal with the situation. And I'm to the point, again, where I'm just like, I would rather know. If she has a problem, an issue, a concern, tell me. Let's talk about it. Let's work it out. Let's think through it.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head girls basketball coach at Sunnyvale High School, Jill Mcdill. Coach Mcdill has been coaching for 26 years, 24 as a head coach. She's been the head coach at Crawford, Rockwall, and Sunnyvale High School. Coach Mcdill's teams have won 717 games with only 149 losses. She has led 11 teams to regional tournaments and 6 teams from 3 different schools to state tournaments. In 2007, the Rockwall Lady Jackets won the 5A state championship with a record of 40-0, only one of 3 teams in Texas to ever go undefeated. They were ranked number 3 in the nation by the USA Today poll. In 2015, the Sunnyvale Lady Raiders won the 3A state championship with a 37-2 record. Coach Mcdill has been named the District Coach of the Year 18 times, Dallas Morning News Coach of the Year in 2006 and 2007, and NFHS Coach of the Year in Texas in 2016. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coaches, the Jamodi Podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
What's up, Coach?
Hey, how's it going?
It is good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. This is an honor for me.
Oh, sure. I'm really excited to be here. It's always fun to talk some basketball and culture and things like that.
And I've been wanting for this to happen since I was able to listen to you at a coach's clinic. Was that 2 years ago now?
Well, I think maybe it was. May have been 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that was an amazing lineup, and I remember thinking, I don't belong in this.
I felt the same way. I felt the exact same way.
Coach, I'm going to do it. I'm going right off the bat. I'm going to say, when you have 700 wins, you belong. Okay,
No. Do you know what that means? It means you're old.
I wanted to ask you, when you hit that number, and okay, let's get past the old part. When you hit that number, what were your thoughts? Because when I hear that number, I just think, how do you get there? And obviously there is, you have to have a longevity in your career. But what did it feel like to make that mark?
I think it was neat. I know to some people that seemed like a special number, maybe like my husband and my family really enjoyed that. But for me, it's just another season, just another game, just trying to do our best and maximize, the team for that year. Really, those things kind of come and go. But it was neat to be at the state tournament and be recognized with that and look around at the other coaches getting those awards and see some and be just like, oh, cool. I know him, I know her, things like that. That was fun.
Yeah, and I appreciate that approach to it. I'd like to think that if I could ever stick around long enough and have talented players and all the things that have to work into achieving a milestone like that, I'd like to have that same mentality or approach as you, which is, just another game. The only reason I feel like that it's possible is, okay, people may laugh like when I'm comparing 200 to 7, but when 200 happened, we were playing in a tournament. I knew I was close to it, but we had actually just won. But like sometimes when you win, it doesn't necessarily feel good. And the
Right.
exact same, the way that when you lose sometimes, you don't have to feel necessarily awful about it if you felt like you give your very, very best. Well, I didn't feel like we did. So I'm kind of fired up. I don't believe in right after a win or a loss going after the guys I think time needs to go by, but I was at that moment saying, like, in our little huddle, there are definitely things we can do better. But hey,
Sure.
and we break out and I turn around and posters and everything in a ball.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh man,
Oh
I
man.
really ruined the moment by just saying, like, listen, what we did, it's not enough. But
Right. We can be better. Yeah.
yeah, but ruined the moment. But I think it's fascinating to know that, when you hit that moment that you still had that feeling of just another game and things that we can continue to do in the future. That growth mindset.
For sure. I mean, I don't even remember honestly what game that was, this year. I don't remember.
Nice. With 700 wins, and we kind of discussed that. How many seasons as a head coach?
So I was at Crawford for 1 year, Rockwall for 12, just finished my 11th at Sunnyvale. So what is that, 24? So 24 seasons as a head coach.
Wow, that's incredible. Just doing that math right there. Like, so obviously, and I think you would agree, a lot of that credit does have to go to our players. Whenever, like, a lot of times that win award is directed at us, but there's a lot more people involved. And I also think culture has to do a lot with that, because you've been at several schools. How has culture created that atmosphere where success can happen?
Right. I think that the culture, getting that set and how you want it as a head coach, then it should, if it's done right, feed on itself and just continue. Now, of course, you have to still fight for that culture every day, but once the kids know it and they know what's expected, then your leaders want to do that. Your
Hmm.
leaders, I feel like, want to see that happen. Your assistants know what it should look like. And so, it would run without you there. I would like to think if I were out for a month, if I were out, then things would just still go on the exact same way through our kids that are the leaders, through our assistants, et cetera, that they would be able to keep doing what we do.
Yeah. I like the idea too of, like, what you said. If we're not there, is there a different feeling in the workout, in the building? Because obviously, we do, as coaches, I think we need to set a tone, and we are directing sometimes where that culture goes. But uh, when we leave, when assistants are taking over, is there a different feel, or does it remain the same? I think that's huge.
Right. And for us, just looking and finding those leaders amongst our players is really big for us too. And kind of building those kids up, through their career, so to speak, in high school.
I think culture is kind of like discipline too. Like, the more you have to talk about it, maybe the less it's really there. Like, anytime a coach is like, "Oh, we're disciplined," it always makes me wonder, really?
Hmm.
Do you have to keep talking about it? I think with our team, it's not that we have to use that word culture, which
Right.
is a buzzword, and a lot of people kind of start to glaze over when they hear that, even though it's really important. But I think a big part is not necessarily having to say that we're fighting for our culture, but doing things
Mhm.
that is keeping it alive. So, what are some of those things? Maybe it's an activity, something that you do daily, weekly with your players that keeps that culture going.
Even in this off season, we have it to where the girls have an hour off for lunch every day at school right now. And so we try to have a lunch at least once a week.
Nice.
And it has nothing to do with basketball. I mean, they literally just go into Coach Johnson's room and everybody's in there and they eat lunch and we all goof around, talk about anything. And what's funny is one of my sophomores today was like, "Hey, why didn't we eat lunch today? Why didn't we have lunch today?" And my JV coach said, "Well, you can set it up. Why don't you text everybody and get that together for tomorrow?" Even though she's going to be out for something, our coach. And so it put that in this girl's hands and she was like, "Look, I was a leader. I invited everybody to come hang out and eat lunch," basically, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but we just want them to be together and to be hanging out and to be having fun where it's not all just basketball. I will say one of my favorite things that we do is for senior night. And so once we get to senior night, we have a team dinner the night before our last home game. And so this senior night team dinner, we invite all of the senior parents to come to that. And what we do is the seniors have written a letter to the team. And so at that team dinner, we eat dinner, we hang out, and they read their letter to the team about what it has meant for them to be a part of the program, what it's meant for them to be a Lady Raider. And I will tell you, it ends in tears. Everyone's crying,
yeah.
the parents, the coaches, the kids. And then, so each player then writes all three of the seniors. This year we had 3 seniors. So when we went to that team dinner, those 3 seniors read their letter to the team. And then the other kids, they showed up with letters for all 3 of the seniors. So at senior night, what we gave them was a notebook of letters from every individual on the team. All the players, managers, and coaches have written them a letter saying, this is what we love about you. We're going to be fighting for you in the playoffs. When we get to the playoffs, we're fighting for you. We want to keep this going for you. And I really just love that idea of we want to stick together so that we can keep going because you're a senior. We want to honor your commitment to the team and to the program.
Wow.
So that's something cool that we've kind of just developed over the years.
You said parents were there at that dinner.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think that's really sharp, like important to involve parents as much as we can in the standards, the pillars, or culture activities that we're doing, because so often, and you guys do a good job of using social media too, like your platform on Twitter. I just enjoyed kind of going through it and seeing how active you are in celebrating your players, involving the community, involving younger 6th grade, 7th and 8th grade on there. Like everybody seemed to be a part of your program, which is really cool. But to think that our players will go home and give a correct assessment or explain what the culture is to our families, that's dangerous.
Yes.
But when we bring them in, they get to experience it. And we withdraw from parents and families quite a bit throughout the year. I think that's some great opportunities to show and deposit into them.
Right. And that's what I try to tell young coaches nowadays as a more, I don't know what you call it, older coach is.
I would say experienced. I would never say older. Yeah.
But, when you're younger, sometimes you're intimidated by parents. You're intimidated by them being around. And I'll just say we should see this is beneficial. With these parents, it should be a partnership. We should be working together. We want the best for their kids. They want the best for their kids. So let's make this a partnership. We're working together for this. And so we want the parents to be there. They love being a part of that senior night. We do some team dinners where parents can sign up to host those, and they're there at that. We want the parents to see what we're doing. And like you said, we try to celebrate kids on social media and with the parents. Every week I'll send out a sports U about what's coming up on the week and things like that. So seeing parents as a benefit is a big deal. In fact, even at our end of season meetings, I'll say, bring your parents. if your parents, and of course, most of the kids are like, no, no, no. But on that last meeting we have with kids, hey, bring your parents. They may want to hear these answers, the answers that the kids give, the answers that the coaches give. And we can have some dialogue and let them speak into it a little bit as well.
Man, that's really good. And I think early on, you're right. And maybe not every coach when they're younger, but I know I struggled with this was viewing parents as enemies rather as allies. And I think that, and use the word partner, I think too, like that is, it's when we look at them as allies and we're partnering with them, we're all a part of, we're all stakeholders in their development. That's just a mind shift that I think helps the way that we communicate. It helps the way that we take in information that our players give us. Instead of being on edge already, we're able to maybe process messages that parents send or things that they're telling their kids, like just better. And the more that we can view them as allies, I think that's
Right.
huge.
And some of that is just being a parent and me having
Yeah.
three boys that have been involved in athletics and all. My youngest boy is a junior in high school. And so now the oldest two graduating, playing football and basketball the whole time and things like that. And you just see that, hey, we want what's best for our kids. I want them to learn life lessons through athletics. I'm not looking for, you've got to get them a D1 scholarship. As a parent, I just want them to learn and I want them to get better and I want them to learn just all kinds of life lessons.
You're right on the money. What a huge shift from not having kids to having them. And really how it changed my perspective as a coach, where now sitting on the sidelines watching my son play select ball, I am forced to try to control my thoughts. And you know, one time my wife was like, "Do we need to talk to the coach?" I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, we're not those people. But like, so now when I get to talk with parents, there is more of like, I understand, like, I
Right.
understand what you're going through. The challenge is for younger coaches that maybe aren't in that role yet to already start to have that empathy towards the parents and really, I mean, if we respect their position and their role with our players, that should help.
Right. I think so as well. And just trying to understand that they want what's best for their kid and they're seeing everything through the lens of just their child.
Yeah.
We're seeing it with regards to the whole team. And so just understanding that and knowing that, I think a lot of times helps.
And accept the fact that you're not going to please everybody and that you may not always get everybody to look through the lens that we use. Like, it's just not, it's most likely not possible. So when you accept that, I think it can help us, because that was always a frustrating thing, was like, why don't they care more about the team than,
Right.
well, because they have that lens, that tunnel vision, and that's okay. Right. But the more that we can bring them in behind the scenes and let them see how we're impacting our players, not just on the floor, I think that helps. It goes a long way.
Right.
One thing I think it's important that you said is you have the lunch once a week, which so many times I think with culture, we think about the senior night dinner. That's a big thing. And we think like we have to do a ton of big things throughout the year. I think it's big and small. It's the thousand. What is culture? It's the 1,000 little things that we do throughout a season, the little conversations. Coaches, that's a huge nugget. Lunch once a week with your players. It costs you nothing. And you're already at the school. Like, because so many times we think, I just don't have time to do more things with bonding and culture, getting to know players. I think you just hit on one way right there that we can all do.
Right. And you know what's funny is whenever I was thinking about this, I actually asked some of my players, like, hey, what was your favorite culture building activity? And something I thought was so interesting is one girl said, you know what the best thing was that I had to do this year? This is so weird. I'm like, what? And she said, we were at our one out of town tournament and I had 3 girls that were in one room they overslept. They missed the team breakfast. Now, all it was a team breakfast. You know, it wasn't a practice. It wasn't getting on the bus, but we were supposed to eat breakfast. And so they didn't show up at all. And I made them do what we call a do right. And they didn't get to start. 2 of them are all state players, by the way, that weren't there. And so they didn't get to play the whole first quarter. And then when we got back home, they had to do a do right. And she said, that was my favorite team building thing I had to do all year. I said, a do right? But she said, yes, because I learned I would be accountable for my actions. I was going to be accountable. Even when it wasn't a basketball thing, I was going to be accountable and it was going to affect the team. I laughed at that, but I thought, well, okay, that can work.
Great activity is to ask our players what they loved. And I've kind of stolen this from, I think, Mark Cassio, or borrowed from Mark Cassio. He said 3 things he asked his seniors: what's something they loved, what's something that we need to keep doing, what's something that they wish that we did, and something that they wish we didn't do anymore. Like, and you'll hear a lot from those, but like asking them, what's your favorite culture activity? It's amazing the answers that you get. I got to ask, what's a do right?
So a do right it is a whole sheet of it takes about 45 minutes for them to complete. It's basically, if you do something wrong, then
you got to do right.
You're gonna do right. And once a player does a do right, she never wants to do one again. But it includes things like some towel push. So it has a upper body section, a cardio section, a lower body section, abs. I mean, it's a whole body workout, and it is only reserved for some serious things. Those were the only 3 players that did one this entire year.
Wow. And the threat of a do right is enough.
Right. Most of the time. It's something we put together years ago, honestly, when we were at Rockwall. And so we've had that, but most players don't ever end up having to do one.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
They were late to the breakfast, and you didn't start them, and they had that do right. So it made me think about maybe rules or standards that you have with your team. Was that a rule already in place of, if you miss breakfast or if you're late to something like getting on the bus or whatnot, then you won't start that next game? Is that something you had already established?
Yes. If somebody's late for when we're leaving for a game, they don't start. And that has happened sometimes over the years. In fact, the year we won the state championship in Sunnyvale, 3 of our starters were late. 2 who ended up being Division I basketball players were late, and we were playing Argyle in a tournament, and I did not play them the whole first quarter, and we ended up losing that game in triple overtime. So there was a good ending that we won the state championship that year, and we can look back at that and be like, remember that? But at the time, it wasn't funny, at all.
Yeah.
But now we go back and laugh at that, like, oh man. And not only were they late, a couple of them had forgotten their shoes. And a dad had to go back to the school and speed there to get them there. And anyway, but we had that set up. If you're late, then you don't get to start if you're a starter. And there's a certain amount of stuff you run at that point. And we don't have a lot of kids late because of that.
I definitely see that part of it, that you'll get away from a lot of kids doing the action because, like the do right, they're terrified to have to do it. They don't want that consequence. That makes me also think of, like, there's almost 2 sides to that, or 2 camps where, and I appreciate the way that you go about it, which we have these rules, these standards, and I'm not going to bend no matter what. And then there's the more like the Calipari view of, I'm always the last one on the bus. meaning no one's ever late,
Right.
not boxing yourself into a situation like that. Where
Sure.
my high school coach, I was late and it wasn't my fault. It was my mom's fault, but I was late and I didn't start at Marcus. So I've been coached by people like that, and I feel sometimes like that, but then I understand the other side. What makes you over the years, you've stuck with kind of that philosophy and standards that in that game in particular, it did put you in a tough spot.
Sure. And I really don't have many rules that would kind of box us into something except for be on time. I'm a big stickler for that one. It's Sunnyvale.
That's a John Wooden rule, right?
Right. I mean, that's just on that one. I just be on time is a huge thing for me. And the other one is don't lie. Just don't look me right in the eye and lie to me. Outside of that, we don't have a whole lot of rules. Don't get a technical. We do, I don't want them getting technicals in games. But outside of those, we don't have tons of rules, honestly.
Okay. But just really impressed though, because a lot of people will say it like, hey, yeah, we don't allow people to be late here. But before a big game, if
Right.
two of your starters who are darn good are late, are you really going to stick to that? And the fact that you did, what was the player and parent, if you don't mind, reaction after?
This year, or you're talking about the year
That one that with those two D1 girls and yeah.
Actually, with all of these parents I'm talking about, they all were supportive of it 100%. Even when we lost that one year and we lost that game, those parents were like, yeah, they should be on time. And this year, those parents, same thing. We're like, well, they should have woken up for breakfast. They should have been there. That's on them. So honestly, I've never really had any pushback on that. But our parents have been amazing, at Sunnyvale and at Rockwall as well. I mean, really 99% of the time, they've been awesome and supportive.
No doubt it probably is about the amazing family and community that you've been a part of. I also think though you deserve a lot of credit in probably your parent meeting that you have, the conversations with the players, the fact that you are consistent with what you say and do, because in my opinion, when you hold to a rule in one situation, it's going to highlight times when you didn't in others. Right. That's where parents, but she was late and she didn't miss. So like, again, it's not that you're right. Like you don't have a ton of rules and be on time. It makes a lot of sense. And if it's John Wooden's rule, then it's good enough for all of us.
That's right.
But you have to stick to it. And when you do, you have to do it for everybody. But because you do that, and because of the culture that you have, and they're invited into it, that probably helps also the parents to say, yeah, you know what, she's right. You should have done that.
Right. And really, we've had people that, like I said, the parents have been amazing at that. Even if and maybe they don't agree all the time with everything, but they've been supportive, and say, well, that's the rule, so you've got to do it.
I usually don't get into this, but since that you've had such successful teams, like really year after year, just if you do the math with how long you've been a head coach to all of those wins, you've had really good seasons. Playing time, and this isn't something I get into with a lot of coaches, but do you typically go deep into the bench, or do you have your 6, 7, or 8 that you really stick with? How does that work for you?
So I think that depends on the year,
yeah.
And the talent, of course. But I will say, in thinking through, I think like in 2007 at Rockwall, when we won the state championship, we generally played 7 kids, in those games. And then at Sunnyvale, it was usually 6 or 7 kids. Yeah, so 6 or 7 kids. Now, I will say at the start of the year, though, we try to play everybody. We're trying to play at Sunnyvale, it's usually 10 to 12 on varsity. at a 4A school. And I'm trying to get everybody in and see what they can do and figure out roles and
It's
things
hard
like
to
that.
do.
It's hard to do. And especially when we have some experienced ones that are, certainly coming back and really good collegiate level players. And so they're going to get more time, of course. But as the year goes on, that window closes and it really is more 6 to 7 people. Although I would love it to be 8 to 10. And that's what we're hoping for this, in this next year and these next few seasons. I think we'll have a little more depth and be able to. I would love to do that. When I was at Crawford, I did play 9 there, and so I really think it depends on the year and also, who you have. I have a girl coming back that averaged 19 points a game and had 133 pointers this year. She's going to be on the court,
Yeah.
And so she'll be a senior next year.
People understand that one for sure.
Yeah. So she'll be out there, but at the beginning, that's how it is, and then it kind of that closes up some, and so that's just kind of how we've done it.
It's interesting. I'd love to know how many teams win at a high level, make deep playoff runs, possibly even win state playing a lot of players. Because most of the time when I think of like super successful teams, they had like 6 or 7, maybe 8. So is it that it's just hard to play that many? Or if you are playing that many, that means you don't have a standout 5, 6, or 7 or 8, which means you might not be the best that you could be. I don't know. I'm trying to, do you know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with that? Like, we went far because our 5, 6, or 7 were so good that we couldn't even sub. I don't know.
Right. Again, I think for us, it's just saying, for me, being competitive, like, how can we win? What's our best chance to win with this group, and who needs to be on the court? I think it's a year-to-year thing. I would love to have some depth, and I think we'll be able to do that a little bit more. I hope so.
But see right there, love to have depth. So would I.
Yeah.
But you won without depth. Like, why do we need depth? Like, that's kind of I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the best to have 12 boys or girls that are way better than anybody else is. But that's not the case. Usually, you're trying to get your best 5, 6, 7, or 8 out. I think where depth really does help, and this isn't like a, shocker, but is practice and being able to give yourself good looks. The deeper that you are, the more competitive practice can be, and that can help you prepare. But I don't know, our girls team here won 30 games this year. They had 6 players, like on the team, like 8, but 2. Okay. Well, 8, but 2 didn't play that much. And so practice was 2-on-2, 3-on-3, small-sided games. But our 5 or 6 were pretty darn good. So I don't know. What's your idea of, like, why is depth good? Why do we want that?
Well, for us, where we've been hurt sometimes with not having depth is really with some foul trouble. Then who do you have at number 6, 7, 8? If that's such a huge drop off, that can really hurt, of course. I think, being able to play at a fast pace, if you're looking to do that, or if you wanted to press a lot, this year we weren't even trying to press a whole lot because we were going to play, 6 or 7 kids, a lot of games. And so you could change your style of play up some, depending on who you have and those kind of things, and risk a little bit defensively. If you're not so worried about foul trouble and things like that. I think that's where it would affect it the most.
Going back to playing time, when at the start of the year or throughout, how open are you with players? Do you initiate those playing time talks? And also, if parents want to know that, because in my opinion, 99% of meetings that parents set up, even if they say it's not about playing time, it's gonna
It's
like it's gonna weave its way back around. But how do you handle those situations?
So early when we first start, practices, I'll have a meeting with each player, call them in, say, what do you think your role on the team is going to be? What would you like your role to be? What do you bring to the team? And a lot of times they're right, and they're pretty realistic. Now I don't know if that's a difference with girls and boys. If all boys think, yeah, I'm the stud, I'm going to score 20 points a game. I don't know.
Probably, yeah, probably not gonna be able to take me off the floor. No, I
Yes,
agree with you. I think majority now part of it is asking that question, and that's what I was going to tell you. I think that's amazing is asking them what they view their role as. I've seen most players are realistic.
right. And so I'll ask them that. I take notes on those meetings and then say, what can you get better at? How are you going to work on that? Those kind of things. And then from the coaches' perspectives, I've talked to all, the assistants and just give some feedback for them. Like, here's how you could get better. Here's how you could earn playing time. Those kind of things. Because a lot of times that's what mom and dad and they care about is, can I get on the court? How can I get on the court? And so we have that conversation. Then we have them again at about the middle of the year, right before, district starts, have the same kind of conversation. How do you feel like you're doing? Are you happy with what's going on? And really just have an open conversation with them about that. And then we have another one at the end of the year with all the players. And then, of course, the seniors have the exit interviews too. But with the players, just saying, what did you do great this year? How could you get better? What do you want to, what could be better next year? And how can we change some things? And just sitting down and talking to them. And I always say, what problems, questions, or concerns do you have? And I'll tell you that 95% of the time they're going to say, oh, none, I'm good. But every once in a while,
Yeah.
somebody will tell you something and you can deal with the situation. And I'm to the point, again, where I'm just like, I would rather know. If she has a problem, an issue, a concern, tell me. Let's talk about it. Let's work it out. Let's think through it.
Is that experience allowing you to take it that way? Because I think, again, going back to, I'm right in the middle, of halfway through this journey. But early on, maybe when you're younger, you take them not being okay as a direct attack towards the way you coach, the way you think, the system that you've put together. Is it experience that allows you to say, I want to know if you're struggling?
I think it's experience. And again, like we've said, me having my own children and knowing at times like, man, he's frustrated with such and such, and I'll say, well, go tell the coach. Oh no, I can't do that. They don't really want to know. And I've had to reflect on that. Like, do I really want to know? Do I want to know if they're struggling? Do I want to know if they don't think I like them or they don't think I want them on the court for whatever reason? And I've just come to the point where I'm like, I do want to know that because I do want to have their best interest at heart. And even if it's that they can't get on the court right now, to be able to explain that and say, I love you and I care about you as a person. So, but this is what's going on and explain it. It's just become where, and maybe it is like you're saying with some experience and some years and having children too, of being able to say, I do want to know. I do want to know if my best player is frustrated about something,
Yeah.
or even if number 8, 9, 10, because she's going to affect others too. And we want this to be something where they're learning and growing as people at the end of the day.
Yeah. My wife gave me some great advice years ago when I had a senior who was just, I don't think he wanted anything to do with what faith offers, our school, what our program was about. Like just, and I just was telling her how frustrated I was. And she said, Matt, like, it's not your job to save him. And not that like you and I are talking about saving kids, but there's another part to that. Like, it's okay if they don't all like us.
Sure.
It'd be great if they did. I think it'd be really fun to get to show up with a group of players that you enjoy them, they enjoy you, and maybe those are those special years.
Right.
But if getting to a point where it's okay if they're not okay, and it's also okay if they don't always like us, and because the pursuit of that, the pursuit of wanting them all to like us, that can take you down some compromising paths.
No doubt about that. And our 2023 season, we lost in the state championship, but I have said a lot of times that may have been my most enjoyable year. I mean, I loved that team, and it was one of those special years you're talking about where all the girls got along, we all
Yeah.
loved each other, they cared about each other. After a big win, we'd be on the bus on the way home, and they're singing praise and worship music, and they're they just loved each other and cared about each other and did things the right way. And I hated that the last game didn't go the way we wanted it to, but honestly, it was one of the most fulfilling, best seasons. Just really because of that, because those kids just cared and loved each other so much. I just loved it.
Man, those are the special ones when you look back over the years and maybe you have the pictures of teams up on the wall or something.
Right.
And those are definitely the ones that do stand out. I think there's a one golden nugget that you said that I don't want to let just fly by, which was the fact that you met with them often throughout the year. Because what you can't do, the same way that culture's not one meeting at the beginning of the year, here are four pillars, see that they're on our shirts. That's it. Like, that's not enough.
Right.
The meetings with players, maybe about playing time, but just in general, in my opinion, the years where I have the least amount of questioning from players, issues with playing time or role identification, they're the years when I meet with them the most. And this is something I borrowed from Tyron Lee at Wakeland High School. He called them 10-minute meetings. And I started these 3 years ago. I'm doing one round right now when while we're talking at this time of the year. But 10-minute meeting, I use what is that scheduling thing? Sign Up Genius. I
Uh-huh.
use Sign Up Genius and I create the little things. I send the link out and I tell guys to pick their slot that works for them. But the first 5 minutes, I ask questions. The second 5 minutes, they ask questions, and nothing's off limits. So I usually have a couple of my things, like I want to know about their walk at a Christian school. I can ask them that, and I want to know about that. I want to know what they're doing with that part of their life. But then it could be things outside of basketball. Maybe in season, it is more about, how do you feel about your role right now? Kind of like you said. My favorite part, though, is their 5 minutes. Some guys come with a phone and a list of questions they haven't written down. Others not prepared at all, and we stare at each other for 5 minutes. But you're right on the money. It's when we give them the opportunity to say what's on their mind, on their heart. I think that's also, I mean, if a coach's motivation is to not have parent issues, meet with your players more, so that there's never a point where you can talk to a parent and you can say, or they can say, you haven't even spent time with my son or my daughter.
And I love that. I'm going to start doing that. I love that idea of the 10-minute meeting. Let me tell you one thing I did this year, just kind of, I don't know. It's just one day on a Wednesday, after a game, we a lot of times go in the classroom and watch film, and I have them take notes and write some things down. And at the end of one film session, I said, what is one thing you want me to know? What is one thing I need to know right now? That if you could tell me anything, you would tell me. And I said, no, I'm not going to tell. I won't tell anybody else, but obviously I'm going to read it and know it's from you. And if it's serious, I'm going to talk to you about it. I was really shocked by what a few kids wrote.
Wow.
I had one girl tell me about issues she was having at home. Like, I wish you knew the struggles I was having at home.
Coach, that's powerful.
I know. I had one girl tell me just another major family issue going on. Could you pray for this? And then I had some kids say, like, one of my best players put, I want you to know I hate to stretch. She said, I hate stretching every day. What our precious little freshman put, I want you to know I'm scared of dogs. I'm like, what? But but it was really interesting because one girl put, I feel like our team chemistry might be a little off. This was a
Mm.
senior. And so just me saying, what's one thing you wish you could tell me? It was just such a vast array of things that they wrote down. And I was able to just at the end of practice say, hey, come here. Let's talk about this. Now, two of them that I called in the office and we had a face-to-face meeting about, gosh, I'm sorry you're dealing with that at home. Is there anything I can do? Those kind of things. But just asking, I think a lot of times just asking some
Wow.
questions. You're saying they want to talk. Just sometimes we don't really give them the permission or the avenue to do it.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
Which that's powerful. I'll be borrowing that for sure. That's culture. Thousands of little things that we do. If anybody was to ever ask me, how do you create culture? How do you do this? Like, how much time do you have? Like, what? I mean, come spend a week with us. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's not just pillars. I mean, we all have. It's not your two rules. It's not. I have similar rules. It's John Wood. It's because I don't want to be in a box, but I want to have some standards. Don't be late. So always be on time, always be neat and clean, which was another one of his, because we have a dress code. So it just kind of helps me support the school, even though I don't care about facial hair, but the boys aren't allowed to have it. And then the third one is, it's a Coach K question is, in everything you're doing, ask, is this good for the team? Like, and it's not even a rule. It's just, man, just a good way to live by. Like, is this good for my family? Is this good for our team? Is this good for our program? But that question right there, and I think there's a genius in having them write it down first, because it's kind of like that first step towards really opening up. Easy to write something down.
Right.
If you were to just say, hey, like if I was to meet in our 10-minute meetings and ask them that right to face, I don't know. I don't know how open, authentic, but you know what? They've already written it down. They've already given it to you. You already know about it. Why don't we talk about it? Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that actually just was on a whim one day, just like, what's one thing you need me to know? And I was really shocked by how much they opened up there.
Mm. So I feel like I have a pretty good idea about your program and culture, but what would you say is one thing or several things that really makes it different?
I'm not sure that there's too much that's just like, this is different. This is completely shockingly different. But I will say this, I'm a very non-confrontational person outside of basketball. If you just meet me and we're friends, I'm very non-confrontational. But when it comes to culture and the basketball culture and what I want it to be like, I am willing to be very, very confrontational. So anything that doesn't line up with what we want in our pillars are attitude, hard work, heart, team first, excellence. Okay. All the girls, I mean, seriously, 5th through 12th grade should know that and could do hand signs for it. And they know the hand signs, they know the emojis. We've got all the things. And so we start talking about that from basketball camp, from when they're real little. But I think I'm willing to confront things, attitude and effort wise, and just really fight for the culture. And so I'm committed to that, to where, again, I don't really love confrontation, but my husband laughs because in basketball, it's a different deal. I'll call up a parent, I'll talk to kids, I'll have the awkward conversation. All of that's okay with me when we're talking about the culture.
Most people don't like to eat the frog. They don't like to do the thing that's most difficult first. But there is something about this role that me and our girls coach, Matt Garnett, we sometimes talk about like how, not that it's not, we're excited to have confrontation with somebody. That's weird. But like, yeah, let's go. Let's
Right.
get this done. Like we're
Yeah.
gonna take care of this right now. I'm gonna make the call to the parent that has sent me an email that's completely inappropriate. I'm gonna bring them in and I'm gonna sit down face to face with them. I don't know if that's toughness. Maybe there's a level to it, but I think it's care. When
Right.
your level of care is high enough, you eat the frog and you do those tough things like you're talking about.
And I think a lot of times maybe when you're young, you think, oh, that's not a big deal. That's not that big of a deal. I'll let that slide. Oh, this one over here, this isn't that big. I mean, they were just 5 minutes late. That's not a big
Yeah.
deal. And then, oh, that parent yelled out such and such. That's not that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden, you look up and you just hate where it's at. Instead of if you really confront those little things early on, then what I have found is then you don't have huge issues popping up a lot of times. I think another thing we stress a lot that may make us a little different is we talk a lot about joy in our program that we want to. I tell coaches all the time, like, we're forgetting that this should be fun. We should be
Yeah.
smiling a lot. We should be enjoying this. And so last year our theme was joy. This year it was love. We want to love each other and for this to be a good experience and for us to have fun. And that's okay. I mean, it's okay to have fun.
No doubt.
And so I've
Coach,
seen
I think fun is underrated.
it is, yeah. And I've seen programs where you win and everybody's mad and looks upset, like, hey, we just won, we want to get
It's because coaches watch movies like Remember the Titans when old Coach Boone says, "Is football fun?" And he says, "Zero fun, sir." He's like, "Not even a little bit." Like people, we watch that like, yeah, I want to have a serious program, but we're not going to have fun at all. Well, I don't know. I think what if being a part of your program is not the brightest spot in their lives, but one of it's a bright spot.
100%. That's what we want. That it's something they look forward to. I want them to look forward to practice and for them to want to be around each other. Like we said today with the girl wanting to have lunch and saying, let's get together. And why didn't we have it today?
Yeah.
And so I want them to enjoy being around it and for us to, when the season's over, for us to all be upset and sad, like, man, we don't get to have practice today. When we feel that, I feel like it's been a good year.
I got to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can edit all of this out if you like. Hand signs for the culture.
Yeah. So
Let's
ours
go.
is, okay. So attitude is this. That's attitude. And
Okay.
there's an emoji for that. That's like an explosion because that is like the joy, like attitude. And what we say about attitude is attitudes are contagious. So if I come in and I've got this great attitude, then that's contagious to everybody. If I come in and I'm like, oh, this is going to be an awful day, then that's just contagious and it rubs off on people. So I get to choose my attitude and it's contagious. So this is attitude. Then hard work is just flex.
Yeah.
So that is, we go by, there's a proverb that says all hard work brings a profit. So all hard work, something good happens when we work hard. It may not always be a win. It may not always be a 100 on a test, but if you work hard, something good happens. If we believe that, then we're more willing to put in the work, So, and then we do heart, which that's easy. For us, heart is like passion, emotion, energy. If a coach says to me, man, coach, your team plays so hard. That's one of the best compliments, right? That they play with heart. And it's hard to just explain that. Taking charges, diving on the floor, all of those intangible little things like that. Okay, so we go attitude, hard work, heart. Team first is this that I'm going to put. Can you see that?
Yep.
Your hand interleaved. So team first, we say, I don't care who scores, as long as Sunnyvale scores. We're going to put the team first in everything. I'm going to put the team first in all of my decisions. It's not about one kid. And then excellence is just a thumbs up. So again, may seem cheesy to you,
No.
but all of our kids, we can gather up and I'll say, all right, what's the Lady Raider way? And they'll say, attitude, hard work, heart, team first, excellence. And then we'll have, one per week at the beginning of the year and go through those, with excellence being the result of all those other things, but also how we want to do everything. Like how you do anything is how you do everything. That we want to have excellence in all we do and be our very, very best.
Coach, I don't know if there's a cheesier program out there than Grapevine Faith Christian School boys basketball. I mean, we snap for everything. Snap has become, I mean, I got it from PGC, and in PGC, it's just the way that we celebrate. It's like clapping for each other, but we'll snap instead. But now it's become a greeting at our school where I'll be walking, and from behind me, I hear, and I'll turn around, and it's a player. We snap. So anything that you can do that's different, that makes your culture come alive, that makes those standards or pillars, like all those words that you have are great. Like most cultures, ours cross over in certain ways,
Right.
Or we have similar words, toughness, like instead of what, but like I've never thought about having a hand sign, even though we do those things, we do those things like the players do, like, why not? And I love it. Like when we have camp to have our players learning those standards pillars, because here's the thing, like we may say the words, but the hand signs help the words actually like stay and remain. Crazy thing is, like, you've already given me a lot of good stuff. That may be one of the main things, Coach, that I borrow from this. Like, but it's not a small thing to me. Like, I think that's actually amazing. The emojis. So you got your thumbs up. Is it just the hands together?
No, on that one, because it's team first, we put like a little one medal. Like there's a medal on there that's a gold medal. And
humility. What would you do? Maybe hands together, or what would humility?
Yeah. What could humility be? I'm thinking of a face, but I don't know I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't know what all those are. Little face on it. Yeah, but maybe this. But
I think it's that. Like, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
But I actually got that from a football coach where they had hand signs for everything, because he was just saying it helps you remember. It helps the kids remember the words. And so we came up with those. So we did the hand signs, the emojis. Then we started doing, like, if a kid takes a charge, I have those little plastic trophies from Amazon. And after the game, I go into the coach's office, get a little bitty plastic trophy and say, hey, she took a charge today, and everybody goes crazy. So during the game, if somebody takes a charge, you'll probably hear somebody on my team go, trophy.
Yeah, I love it. The culture is 1,000 little things, and we have a charge wall. So, but yeah, just going back on huddle, finding the moment where they take the charge and the ref is like this and putting on there. And so all of a sudden in games, you hear charge wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I love the idea of the little, like, Ted Lasso, there's so much brilliance in that. And that's kind of where the 1,000 things, like the Lasso way, like what is the faith basketball way? It's 1,000 little things, that over years, and maybe that's the tough thing when you're first starting out. Maybe not just being a younger coach, but starting off at a new place, is what do you choose first? Like, you can't do it all right at the very beginning, but slowly implementing things, but then also being willing to try. Wisdom Wednesdays is something that, and I don't mean to ramble, I know this is about you. But if you don't,
I'm learning, man.
Wisdom Wednesday. So I just follow TJ Rosine's kind of daily themes, if you will. But Wednesday is Wisdom Wednesday. And I just had guys bring a quote and read it. And that's fine. Like, nothing wrong with that. I just wanted them to be involved with it. But it wasn't that fun. And then I saw this video of the Lakers G League team reading a quote, but they had everybody around, the guy had his sheet, and one of the coaches says, but when you do it, you have to read it with enthusiasm and conviction. And you have to choose the right player to do it first, because they got to be a guy that or girl that's okay with going all out, looking silly, had a manager film it. But like during the season, if you go through our feed or whatever, you'll see these Wisdom Wednesdays, and it is a kid reading it with everybody around, practicing being good followers, that followership that leadership is important, followership is important. And so they're practicing that too, and then at the end, they whoever said it starts screaming and they're all jumping up and down. It took reading a quote to a whole other level and stretched some kids where they're not comfortable doing that. But right. I think be willing to take chances on things like that to make it more fun, to enhance the culture.
Right. I was saying last year we said our theme was joy. And so we were thinking, what could we do for a player of the game that's not necessarily the kid that gets the most points or has the most rebounds, although they may be it sometimes, but somebody that's showing joy. So we decided on Sunny D, like Sunny Delight. Seems joyful. I don't know why. Seemed joyful. So we bought these little bitty bottles of Sunny D, and after the game, we give that to the person who had, we thought showed joy in the game. And the girl I'm talking about that wanted the lunch today, her name's Destiny, wanted us all meet. She's like, this year, where's the Sunny D? Are we not getting Sunny D this year? We got to have that. So every year we try to have a different little something that we pass around to the locker based on something we want them to do, like diving on the floor head first. We call that a Superman. And so I have a Superman figurine on my desk right now that during games, if somebody did that in a game, they would get to put that in their locker. And so just little things like that of thinking like, what's important to us? And then how can we celebrate that when a kid does that? So I love that thing with the quote that it sounds like they're celebrating that together and getting involved.
To hear them, if you want to go far, like they're yelling it. And I always tell them, like, make sure you pause for like a good gap after you say this. Like I try to coach them through it a little bit. Right. Love the figurines. Love the Superman. I was trying to, while you were explaining those, I was thinking, why don't more people do things like this? And I mean, maybe not lack of creativity. That's mean. I don't mean that, but I think maybe some don't think about it, don't think it's that important. Maybe they don't think that it leads to winning as much as scouting report, shell drill, like all the other things that we do spend our time with. But consistency is difficult. And there are a lot of things, especially like I don't really teach anymore. I have AP Silent Study Hall, which is Silent Study Hall. I've just been there 11 years, so I'm the AP teacher, and it's ridiculous. It means nothing. So I have a ton of time to do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But like I would say, like once you start it, like that girl said, what about the Sunny D? Once you start it, you've got to stick. Now I'm not saying like you didn't, but whatever you're doing that year, whatever the charge wall, I went quite a few games without updating it. It starts to lose its value when you don't stick with it. And so like whatever you're going to do, enthusiasm and conviction.
I agree with that. And, sometimes having an assistant in charge of that, it helps me like, hey, remind me to give whoever, these trophies. Remind me after the game so I don't forget.
Coach, well done. You're moving us through these questions like a pro right now. You moved us right into assistance and responsibilities.
Okay.
So obviously, like you just talked about with culture, or giving them little assignments like in different areas. How do you go about dividing up what your assistants do? How do you use them?
So right now, first of all, I look at their strengths as a person. And so Casey Reeves has been my, first assistant for 23 years now. So all 12 at Rockwall, all 11 at Sunnyvale. And so he is great at math. He has a great analytical mind. And so he watches way more film than I do. He can watch the same film over and over and over. And so he watches film. He's really good at scouting and numbers, and what he can watch the film and tell me what we need to work on, based on that. And he's just so analytical and thoughtful like that he sees the film in a different way than I do a lot of times. And so that's very useful and helpful for me because, I may watch the film and get really fired up about something great we do and then get really mad about how we rotated on a certain, defensive play or whatever. But he can watch the whole thing and say, these are the main things we need to cover tomorrow. And then Bria Johnson, she was actually our point guard in Sunnyvale when we won state in 2015.
That's cool.
And this is, her third year here in Sunnyvale. And so she's our young, energetic, she builds relationships with the kids. They're in her room all the time. And she also can still do the skill work and act it out and look like it's supposed to look.
That's right. Coach, nothing loses our credibility more than trying to do something and it just looks awful.
Right. I don't even attempt to do any sort of Euro step or,
that's right. That's an ACL waiting to tear right there.
Right. In fact, I've this year passed along a lot of the bumping people with pads to her. I'm like, I think I'm moving past that as well. So, but she's great at that. So if we see a kid struggling, I'll say sometimes to her, hey, go check on her, see what's going on, see if I need to get involved, or if it's just a bad day, she failed a test or whatever, or if it's something major. She's able to do that. And like I said, really build relationships. And then her room is 108. So she calls it Club 108. She gets the point guards in there with her. She makes clips for the point guards.
Wow.
And watch at lunch. They watch film and go over like, what were you thinking here? Did you see this? Look at this. And she made that name for it, which was cool. But she builds those relationships and helps build that JV team up for us. So I think a lot, I don't want to just say this coach does this and this does this. I really try to look at what are they good at? What am I good at? And that we all can work together, to everybody play their role and to help the kids.
I think you nailed it. A big thing is and know their strengths. Like take the time to know the strengths of the people you have around you.
Right.
I think I'd be embarrassed if I had my assistants here and I asked them like in kind of this environment, like, guys, how do I use you? Like, how do you feel about your role, your value? Terrified really to think, because I think there's this. Okay, let me start over.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a micromanager, which a lot of coaches are, terrified to give up control. But the excuse that I use is because they're mostly part-time guys that I just need to do everything, allow them to show up, give me their best in that time, and then not put much else on their plates. But I think that's an excuse. Like, I think the truth is like, there's a lot of things with culture that I do, a lot of those things, but the time that it takes to get to know their strengths and to really empower them, to follow up with them, I have to be willing to do that.
Right.
So it's still an area I think of growth for me. Right.
And that's, like I said, Casey and I have been coaching together now 23 years. So you figure that out along the way, how to work.
That's incredible. Yeah.
When I'm really fired up and upset, he's the calm one. And on the rare occasion, he's the one that's fired up and upset in practice, or something. Then I'm the calm one. But again, just learning how to work together. And Bria's been great as well, coming in and just bringing some energy and youthfulness in there that's really really big too. And for the kids to be able, I mean, she can truly say to them, I've lived this culture out. I've done this. I've been there. I know what it feels like to be coached by them. And she's a really valuable partner with us in this because of her experience there. And I just love her. She's one of the best. I mean, she's awesome. And so she really brings a lot of that energy to
In
us.
yeah. In our offensive flow, we talk about alternating currents. If I just attacked off the bounce, I'm going to move it. I don't want that player all the time to attack off the bounce again. The idea is do something different. So maybe move it one more, and then this player can do that. But I think alternating currents also works with your staff. And I've watched practices or maybe been a part of some where the head coach hammers them. The assistant coach comes and hammers them. Back to the head coach, he hammers them again. And it's like, all right, at what point do they get to breathe? At one point, who's going to bring them back together and love them? And I had that good dynamic with Coach Watson at McKinney High School. I was a varsity assistant for him. What was always so unique about him was his ability, his humility to let younger players, younger assistants do. So basically what I don't do, he was really good at that. But we would have that. If he hit them, I felt like I had to, hey guys, listen, like here's what you come in with that softer approach. But I think you nailed it with that. Staffs have to be conscious of that in practice, in the locker room, in games.
Right. And we try to do that. I'm not saying we're always perfect at that,
Sure.
but we certainly try to do that and try to show, and we get along great. I mean, I'm really good friends with both of them. We're, in a text message all the time, like, hey, did you see this tweet? Have you seen this drill? Did you see this play? All of those kind of things. So it's great when you enjoy the people that you work with and get along well with them off the court too.
I feel like the relationships that you build with your players probably helps you to know where their confidence is at throughout a season. And that can even throughout a week, throughout a day, it can move. How do you go about helping players with their confidence if you feel like, and typically you don't have to help players when their confidence is high, but when maybe it dips?
Right. A lot of times I'll talk to them, especially a shooter. It seems like shooters they lose their confidence sometimes. And I'm like, you have put in the work.
Yeah, you're right on the money.
Yeah.
Confidence and shooting intertwined. We typically don't talk about their defensive confidence or their blocking out confidence or
right. No doubt.
Keep going. Yeah.
So I'm like, if your shooting confidence can be destroyed by missing 5 shots, then that's on you. That you have been in a gym. I've watched you make thousands of shots. So if you miss 5, I know you're going to make the next 5. If you miss 10 in a row, I'm going to believe you're going to make the next 10 in a row. You are a great shooter that you cannot let a few misses affect you. So we talk a lot about that, but I'll also say, sometimes, we'll just say something. I honestly, now don't tell them. I hope they don't listen to this, but I'll come in and just make something up. Oh, all you're doing is you're just not holding your follow through, or you're just turning your hand a little. Or
it's the tin cup. It's the tin cup approach. Put grass in your left pocket.
Yes. And your feet aren't set. You say that. Say your feet aren't set. Get your feet set. Well, all of a sudden, if she thinks, oh, that was it, and then goes and hits the next 3 or 4. So sometimes I think, just telling them a little something, one thing, not 5. Just one little thing to fix. And I think confidence comes from your preparation. So that hard work, we do a 10,000 shot, club in the summer, and knowing you're prepared. I think before just about every single game, I go in the locker room and say, I say many things, but one thing I always say is, why should we win this game? Why do you think we should win this game? I'll say that before just about every game. And somebody will say, We want it more than them. We're more prepared. We've worked harder. We're we know their stuff better than they know our stuff. I mean, I let them raise their hand and answer. And so I think when I ask, why should we win this game? I want them to believe they deserve success, that we deserve it, that confidence comes from knowing you've worked hard and that you feel like you deserve to win. And so that's the way we go about it, is that hard work's one of our pillars. We're going to work hard so we know that there's going to be something good that comes from that.
I love the questions that you ask. Like you just ask really good questions that it kind of, when I hear that question, or like the what do I really need to know, it just makes like, why haven't I been asking that? Like why did I not think of that? But part of that is doing what you and I are doing, is continuing to learn from others. And there's just so many ways to do this. Right. And then constantly trying to maybe find a better, more efficient way to ask that question. But that's a good question too. Right on the money with confidence coming from preparation. Because without that, then we are truly lying to them. Like we're asking them to be, and I always remind our players that they can't lie to the person in the mirror. Like the mirror knows how much time they put in on their game. And no Rocky song, no quote, no Wisdom Wednesday can get you past that truth. And so the truth has to be that you prepared. Once we've done that, then it's reminding them about the victories and past things. I always tell our guys about David, and how David had one of the best examples of confidence and the reminder game, which before Goliath, he reminds himself of, I've gone up against lions and bears and I rescued a sheep from their hands. Like, this is nothing because I had those wins. I've done that. With shooting, you missed 3. I remembered the game. I remember the half when you went off for 4 or 5. Reminding our players, because we can remember back to our playing days, or even if we're honest, our coaching days, we can forget real quick past success and past things we've done well, and we start to think that we stink it up at everything. We have to remember those.
No doubt. And I feel like every time we lose a game, I think, gosh, will we ever win again? Or, are we ever going to win another game? Almost after every single loss. Another thing that I try to do to help build confidence is to say, hey, not everybody's going to score 20 points a game. We're not asking everybody to be our leading rebounder, leading scorer. Like maybe you're our defensive lockdown specialist, maybe you're our rebounder. And so sometimes I'll go up to a kid and say, you're going to be the X factor tonight. If you can guard so-and-so, you're going to be the X factor. You're going to help our team, because they don't know about you. They don't know how you can defend whatever the action is or whatever. And so trying to make them feel like, what you're going to contribute tonight's really important, even if it doesn't show up in the box score necessarily.
That's good. Another good question to ask players throughout the year, and maybe early on, is, what does it take for you to play in a game, to actually get playing time? What does it take? I think without realizing it, or if we're not careful, all of our players think that they need to do what our star player does, right, in order for them to play or bring value. And if you have little Timmy or little Timette trying to do what your best can do, it's going to hurt them and it's going to lessen their chance. So asking them that question, letting them think about it, and then helping them know, like, yeah, listen, I think if you could come in, give us great energy, like the game was here, man, you brought that energy up to here. We all felt it, and it might, again, going back to us being okay with them being disappointed, it might not be what they dreamt of or want. Maybe it all goes back to preparation. Coach, what do? You build a time machine and you go back and you work. No, but we're not gonna do that to them. Right. But it's like, I think asking that question and then helping them or letting them know exactly what to do instead of them just guessing. Like, coach really celebrates when he scores 25. I think that's what I have to do. That's not
No.
realistic.
Right. And sometimes you're like, no, that's yeah, we don't even want you trying that.
Yeah, Kelvin Sampson, because I am more in the camp of I want everybody to be able to shoot open threes. Like the
Yes.
way we play, if there's a guy that the other team knows doesn't shoot, that hurts us. But Kelvin Sampson says something really funny about like not wanting guys that can't shoot to have confidence in their shot. He
Right.
said, why would I want them to have confidence in something they're not good at? So
Right.
there's maybe a lesson there is finding the things that they are good at, knowing their strengths, and then building their confidence in that. Part of that to me is celebrating.
Yes.
We celebrate the Chargers, we celebrate the Supermans, we celebrate that young man or young lady doing the thing that we've asked them to do.
Right. I think that's huge for sure.
What's up, Coach? Are you looking for a way to elevate your off-season skill development? Well, look no further. With the Bology app, you can build a workout with our library or create your own content. Send that workout to your players, and then your players complete the workout by recording their session on their phones. You can monitor and encourage competition with our leaderboards for every workout. Bology offers player development solutions in the palm of your hands. Get your team started today by going to Bology.com for more info.
Balancing coaching and family life. You've mentioned your husband a few times. You talked about your kids and them being at young ages, right in the middle of of your career building and growing up. How did you go about finding that balance, and is it even possible?
So I love this question about coaching and family life and trying to balance. And I honestly don't think it's exactly a balance. I don't think you can just say, okay, it's going to be this and this. I don't think it works that way. But I do find that a lot of women, when they start having children, just find it really hard to do because coaching does take up a lot of time. And so what I have tried to do is my kids and my husband and my family have all been just super, super involved. And at Sunnyvale, I mean, Noah and Joshua and Julia, Caleb was in high school when I got there, but my three youngest, they were at every practice. They, after school, came into the gym. And in fact, those teams remember my boys as little boys down there at the baseline, taking off their shirts and trying to distract them during free throws. And my assistant, Casey, gave them a bullhorn one year for Christmas. So they'd be down there pushing the buzzer, yelling, trying to get them to miss. And so they grew up in the gym and they grew up feeling like they were a part of the team. When they were old enough, I would throw them in drills. As they got into high school, I'd get them to bring their friends in to go against us. And so now Julia, she's 12. And so she has been to every practice. She comes to every practice, every game. If she doesn't get to ride the bus on the way there and on the way home, she's super upset. And so she feels like she's a part of it too. Yeah. And really my husband makes that possible too, because he really cares about it. He loves the team. He wants to be involved too. And so honestly, it's been a family affair, or I wouldn't be able to do it. I've been able to teach a little, more than half time, but I have some time off of campus every day. I did that at Rockwall and at Sunnyvale, where those school districts allowed that to happen. And so, but the honest answer is too, sometimes when it's a tournament or it's playoffs, basketball is going to take a lot of time. So it's going to go through seasons, and then you get to off-season like right now, and you have way more family time. But one thing I always remember that's funny is when Joshua, who's now about to be 18, he was probably in 5th grade, and the school got them emails, and it was right before playoff time, and I got an email from Joshua from his school account that was, the title of the email was food. And, you know, fifth grade boy, that's what you care a lot about food. And so I opened up the email, and the whole email, all it said was, "We ain't got none." And so my husband's like, "Joshua, it's the playoffs. You know, you got to give her some time. I'm in charge of food till the playoffs are over." But you know, for me, that's why, honestly, I moved from Rockwall to Sunnyvale when my oldest was going into ninth grade, so that I would be there. I'd be able to be at all their games and be in the same place. We live in Sunnyvale, and now my husband's a pastor of a church here, and so everything is the campus I go to, at least, is in Sunnyvale, and so we're all right here, and we're all together, and that's really big for us. And so I love my family being a part and being involved. I couldn't do it if we were all separate, you know, and it was two separate worlds. We try to combine it together as much as possible.
And I think you're right on the money with that. I think that's why Mike Neighbors says, don't try. Like, don't try to have balance. Just do this. Like, bring it together. I would imagine too, with your husband and being a pastor, that you're also all in there too. So like your lives are just completely intertwined, which, man, so I would imagine so many great memories from that. Like this picture back here is he's a junior now, Landon, when he was in first grade at one of our practices in our circle, you know, and as we get older, like, yeah, so my advice and I think you nailed it, to those younger coaches that are having families, like, one, make your spouse a priority. Like, don't allow, golly, this is convicting, because I don't know how many date nights we had this year. Like, to keep the date nights, make sure that, and that's one thing Jana did tell me years ago when I first started at Faith. I think I was at 24 Hour Fitness, you know, working out, and I just was in that mode of like, I'm a head coach now. I'm going to spend as much time. I'm going to be a grinder. I am like all night. Like, nobody's going to work harder. And I think I told her something like that. Like, just so you know, when the season starts, that I'm going to commit everything, you know, and there may be times where I'm not home. And she was kind of quiet on the phone. And then later on, to tell something was wrong, she said, and this is our second marriage for both of us. And it was, I've been through that. You know, I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to be second to something. And man, like, what a shot, like right in the heart. And so doing our best to make sure our spouses are first, but then, man, bring them together. And I think that's the recipe.
Right. No doubt. And like I said, my husband has been amazing at that. I mean, through the years, he's at every game. And in the last 11 years, it is tough for him. Sometimes he'll go watch, you know, all of our boys play basketball at some point too. So he's going to one tournament here to watch the boys play at 9 a.m. and then driving all the way over to where we are to watch us play at 3, and sometimes going back over there to watch them. And so he has been awesome at that, and so supportive, and, you know, supports the team, loves the girls, loves the families, and so great at that. And so we do try to partner together, where I help him out at church as much as possible. He helps with basketball as much as possible. And I always tell the girls at the start of the year, when we have a meeting at the center circle on the first day, hey, this is not the most important thing to me. This, you know, even starting right now, I want y'all to know basketball is going to be important, but it's not the most important to me. Most important is my relationship with God. Then my family's next. And that's these people, and name all the people. And any day they decide they don't want me to do this anymore, I won't be doing it anymore, you know. And then my friends or my family and my friends, and then y'all as people, and then we're to basketball. And so it's important, but it's not the most important thing. And so I really want to try to model that and live that out too. And again, sometimes that's hard, right? Sometimes it's hard, especially in the middle of a season, but I do think that it's possible.
Coach, the speed round.
Okay. I don't know. This makes me nervous.
All the other stuff you're fine on. This is the thing. All right.
Yeah,
We'll start off with an easy one then. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Peppermint.
not mint chocolate chip,
No,
peppermint.
actual peppermint. Yes, I like
Wow.
peppermint ice cream.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What brand makes that? Is that a
Bluebell
Bluebell does? Okay. Okay.
maybe not all the time, but around Christmas they do for sure.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Greatest, and let's stay on the female basketball side with these greatest shooter of all time.
Caitlin Clark.
I was gonna say that's kind of
I think that's a good bet on that one.
yeah. I mean, but there's been others like Tarasi's.
Sure.
She's a good scorer, and
Right.
but Caitlin Clark is too. I don't know.
I know. Caitlin Clark was amazing, man.
Oh,
This last run for them was amazing.
do you think? Because obviously we felt the Caitlin Clark effect, where a lot of people, I'm included, I watch men's basketball way more, but I watched those games. Do you think that, like, the excitement she generated, will we see that translate in the younger girls playing more basketball, and then also the popularity stay where it is?
I hope so. I hope we do. What she has done really, I mean, I know, like I said, my two boys that are 25 and 21 now, they've been watching women's basketball. And we were saying, I think right now people can name more college girls basketball players than college men's basketball players. A lot of people can. And so I hope that generates some excitement that continues, and that we can build on that for sure.
Your favorite gym that you've ever coached in?
Frank Irwin Center at the University of Texas. That was amazing. I always grew up, my dad was a basketball coach growing up, and so we would go to the boys state tournament. And getting to coach there a few times, it was like a dream come true. It was amazing.
If you had your choice, where would you have the state tournament?
Well, I would have said there, but now it's been demolished.
Yep.
So, I played 1 year at Baylor. So again, now they have a new
Foster would be incredible.
It would be awesome. I would love something like Foster.
Because that thing would be packed and loud. Oh, I would love that. What do we have to do? I'm not even in UIL, and I would love to see that. What do we got to do to make that happen? I'll come to those games, but you're right. That's what I felt at the Drum. I kind of felt like everybody was right here and all the history, but the places where it's like it's really spread out or only one side, it's just not the same.
Right. I agree.
Okay. Best basketball movie of all time?
Hoosiers. I love Hoosiers.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Texting or talking?
What do I do the most, or texting is what I usually do, I would say.
Yeah. No, it's fair. I think the majority of us are like that. But what's interesting is to hear the fact that most of us are texting.
Yeah.
We might want to say talking, but that's not.
No, I think texting for sure.
Somebody said you can text 60 people in a day, but you can't necessarily talk to 60 people in a day.
That's true.
Yeah. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I would like it, honestly.
Okay.
I've over the years, I think it would be, for me, I would love like a new challenge of that. Like, okay, so what's the strategy in it? And we kind of had to think through that with the new foul rules this year. What's some strategy?
What were your thoughts on that?
What's good or bad here? And so I think a shot clock, and that was supposed to make the game faster, but I think coupled with a shot clock, it really would have done that. I'm not sure that it did that so much, without the shot clock.
What did you think of the new foul rule?
Honestly, I thought early in the season that it made the game take forever because they were calling a lot of fouls. And so both teams were shooting tons of free throws. So I felt like through the rest of the season that fewer and fewer fouls were called so we could get out of there. Um, and with us not having a ton of depth, I was there. I was okay with that for the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part. But I thought it was interesting. I did hear some people say it would be beneficial, to have a group that could go in and press if you only had like one foul and, team wise with 3 minutes left in the quarter, throw in a group to full court press and you can risk it a little bit.
Yeah.
We didn't really have the luxury of being able to do that, but I can see where that could have helped some teams.
One thing I felt like it eliminated was the feeling of there's 4 minutes left in the first quarter and we're at 7 already. And
True.
just like the dread of what the next quarter and a half was going to be. And I loved the ability of like clean slate. And the goal obviously is not even to get to 5, because I am in the camp of almost like, late game situation, which we'll get to, may be different, but all fouls are errors. I like thinking about it like that. People get upset with foul 4 and 5. They don't care about fouls 1, 2, and 3, right?
Right.
But I'm going to ask you a question that I've never asked anybody, but Nate Oates kind of made this out. And if one of your players gets 2 fouls in the first half, are they done for the half or do they continue to play?
No, usually what we do 99% of the time is if they get 2 fouls in the first quarter, they're out, 3 fouls in the second, 4 fouls in the third. So the quarter number plus 1 is what gets them out for good, for sure. So no, I'll let them get 3 in the first half. And then now when they go in, if they have 4 fouls going into the fourth quarter, when they go in the fourth quarter, that is really a judgment call, but I feel like if it's a close game and we cannot, we feel like that person needs to be on the floor, I'd rather them be out there and roll the dice on that a little bit. So we usually will put them in about 6:30, 6 minutes, 6:30 in an 8-minute quarter and just say, let's live with it, but we need them out there.
I like it.
But no, if they have 2 fouls, I'm playing them. I mean, especially there's certain ones where I'm keeping them in, unless we just have to get them out.
I'm going to add that question. I like it. I think that's something that people will be split on.
Right.
But yeah, that's good. Favorite holiday?
I'm going to say Christmas. I love Christmas just because all the family, everybody on both sides and all that. I love and giving gifts, watching get gifts. And now I have a grandson. And so that was so fun this year. And then another grandson on the way in June. So that makes it really fun.
Our grandkids really as great as everybody says.
Oh my gosh, yes. So this is funny. I got to tell you this. But my grandma name is JJ, okay, because of Jill. So it's JJ. So Bria, our JV coach that I coached, when I'm a little more laid back in practice or not just so fired up, she's always like, I didn't have JJ as a coach. This is JJ coaching this team. And JJ was not my basketball coach. So apparently when you become a grandma, you're sweeter or kinder or something. But yes, it's amazing. I love him. He is so fun. And my husband and I just love any time we get to spend with him.
I didn't have JJ.
Yeah, JJ she's like, I had some crazy woman as my coach. It was not JJ.
Okay, you're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
This is tough because I want to say that I would foul. Okay, I'm going to tell you logically foul. I've never done that in a game though. So does that count? Can I answer as that and then say I've never done it?
If you want to completely just like not answer the question.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I can't.
Yes, I do this, but I've never done it.
Right. So my initial thought a few years back when this started being the topic of discussion, my initial thought was, I don't want to give them any points.
Yep.
And it seems like
that's what Coach K said.
Yeah, and it seems like we're giving them some points. But I also now I've watched a few games where, man, if they would have fouled there, I don't think it would have played out the way it did. I don't think we've been in that situation, is what I'm saying, the last 2 or 3 years when this has become a big topic, where we've had to really think through, do we want to do that?
Yeah.
But I think if I had good rebounders, I felt confident in our free throw rebounding. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That yes, foul, and then we're going to be okay. Even if they make one, miss one, we should get that rebound. If I didn't feel confident in that, or they had a 6'3" girl down there who was a stud, then no, we're probably not giving up points and giving them a chance for that. So I'm sorry I didn't answer that clearly. But
No, that's good. And actually, I believe that your honest answer to that is how most people would answer. I think I'm in the exact same boat. Fouling makes sense to me.
right.
I would do that. I don't think we've ever done it. Like I'm the same way. And part of that is just full transparency. Haven't practiced it enough.
Right.
But also, like, it is a pretty unique situation. But it definitely one that, and this is what most coaches have said, is you need to know before you get in that situation, you need to know what you want to do, but you need to have practiced it before.
Right. We practice free throw blockout a lot in playoffs because that's hurt us before in the past, a long time ago. But honestly, we haven't practiced that. And so if we're going to, on one big day, decide that's what we want to do.
Hey, guys, let's experiment here. Besides the Bible, what book would you give someone?
Gosh, that's tough. Besides the Bible, what book would I give someone? I would say there's a book that
you can always pass on these too. If you just don't have one, you can pass.
Gosh,
and I'll edit it out.
Because I read a lot. And so
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what would be, I love John Wooden's books. Okay, I'll go with this. If it were a coaching book, I would say They Call Me Coach, by John Wooden. I love that book. Read it as a young coach and then have read it since then. I really think there's valuable information, in there for any level coach or even not a coach. I mean, he's just so wise and so full of good advice in a lot of different areas. There's a book called The God You Can Know that's also a really good book that's by Dan DeHaan that I've read several times. It's a really good book. But the Bible's always a good choice as well, for sure.
That's what I always like, depending on who I'm talking to and what I know about them, or I always preface it with, obviously, we'd give people this. And then, but
obviously. Or
okay.
your book.
I did not pay her. I didn't. Well, there's no winking on here, like, because it's behind me. Let me see. No. She's a shameless plug. Where is it? Golly, yeah.
Got it. There you go.
Anyway, favorite place to travel. 2 more. Favorite place to travel.
So we went on a family vacation to Costa Rica a few years back and loved it. I mean, we absolutely loved it there. It was really relaxing, beautiful. And then all of our kids and my husband and I go to Guatemala a lot of times, once or twice a year for mission trips. I love Guatemala, love that country, love the people. Nice. And so Paul and I will be going there again in July, and all 3 of our boys went spring break. And so we love it there too.
That's cool. Last one. Okay. We're going to go. I'm going to ask both directions here. So first, in women's basketball, who is the GOAT, the greatest of all time?
A player or coach?
Player.
In women's basketball, the greatest of all time. I'm going to have to say, it's hard for me to not go with Caitlin Clark again.
Yeah.
With points.
Can you be that already? Like, is she that already? I mean, because obviously in college she has done a lot, but still has a lot of her career ahead of her, but
Sure. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
But I'd have to agree. Like, I get that, but like, I don't know. On the women's side, I guess here's another question. On the women's side, is that as big of a topic as on the men's side? Because you'll have division, and like guys will get really intense about it.
100%. So I don't think it is near as big of a debate right now with the women's game, for whatever reason. But I think now with the rise of college women's basketball and the WNBA,
Yeah, there's some good stars in there, and Sue Bird, she was
right.
awesome. Like, I don't feel like enough people just knew about or were able to learn enough about her, but
Yeah, right. Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, like you mentioned before, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers. I mean, you've got a lot of really good players there. It's hard for me to say who the best coach is of all time as well. It's just debatable, but it's definitely not at the same level that I hear guys talk about.
Let's go that side.
Michael Jordan.
Who do you got?
So my children would be very upset with me if I did not go with LeBron. So
really,
yes. So my son Noah we have a autographed LeBron jersey upstairs. He is a LeBron.
That's big time
fan through and through. And so so I'm gonna have to say LeBron, or he's gonna be really upset with me.
I have no problem with LeBron. It is more about the era that you were in, that age range, the teens to 20s. When were you? And I was in that Bulls dynasty time. When you watch The Last Dance, it's hard. Like, I don't know, GOAT, favorite player, most likable player, like maybe greatest career. I feel like those are all different things because,
sure.
LeBron's career, incredible. And he's been so good for the game. No scandals. Right. Like, the worst thing he's ever done is build a school for kids. Like, he's just good. But
you're right.
All of the Bulls, all the Jordan people out there are like, how can you ever like LeBron? But no, it's good.
That's funny because I actually teach a speech class, and today in class we did persuasive speeches, and one of the boys was on that he thought LeBron was the greatest of all time.
It's a great topic.
As soon as he was done, one of the other boys in the class said, yeah, well, how many championships has he won? And what's his record in the finals? And then I'm like, okay, it's not debate class. This is, that was
it's not speech and debate. It stops right here.
But it is funny that boys are, man, some guys are super passionate about that.
It is such a fun talk, but there's no right and wrong answer to it. But I got to ask, and some people refuse to even engage in it. But sure. Coach, this was so much fun, so enjoyable, almost 2 hours of your time. And just want to thank you so much for being so open and honest about the culture that you have in your program, the little things that you do that makes it unique and special. I got a lot out of it, and I'm just really honored to have the time with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to start these 10-minute meetings you were talking about. And but I appreciate you asking me to be on. I really love talking to you, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Love that, Coach. If anybody had, because one thing we didn't get into is obviously the stuff we talked about helped you to win all those games, but some of the things we didn't talk about, but on the 94 feet, X's and O's and things like that. If anybody had more questions for you, because I got to watch you teach some things on the floor and it's really good. What's a good way for them to get in touch with you or maybe follow you?
Sure. So my email, is that what email
sure.
address is just Jill, Jill .Mcdill, MCDILL at sunnyvaleisd.com. And just email me there. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and, as well. Twitter is more where I have basketball stuff.
Yeah. You do a great job with that too. Yeah.
And then we have a Sunnyvale girls basketball page on Twitter as well. And so we really try to celebrate our kids and our program and community and those kind of things. So yeah, I would always love to talk basketball or just really whatever, coaching, all culture, all of those things. I love to talk about that at any time.
Awesome. Coach, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.